This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. Episode 165 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. We are live on YouTube. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you're subscribing. If you want to listen to it instead, later on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify is the way to subscribe there. You can follow me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86. And if you notice, the playoff beard still intact, still growing, because the Mets have advanced to the National League Championship Series. They took care of the Phillies in 4 games for the first time in Mets history, winning a series at Citi Field. It was a beautiful experience, great to watch on TV. I didn't get to go to any of the games, but I got to watch it at home with my wife. This is Subway to Shea. I got to watch it with my dog, and we enjoyed that series, although a little nerve-wracking, of course. And, of course, at the end, the Mets had to make it, right? Edwin Diaz had to make it a little bit nervous. But here to break down this series with me is maybe one of the OG followers of Subway to Shea, a good friend of mine. And I can't believe this is the first time. So I'm going to apologize right off the bat that this is the first time I'm having my good friend here, Michael Powers, on the show. You can catch him on Fox Sports Philadelphia, The Gambler, where he does the Divide Live show, and also is the co-owner of the Give Us a Shot Network. I'm rocking the gear right now, right here. Michael, what's up, baby?
What's up, Anthony? Thanks for having me on, brother. Huge fan of the show. I mentioned this pre-show, and I just wanted to put it out in the universe. I don't have SNY, so I rely on your content, your show. So I've been an OG fan, but I continue to watch. It's just cool to watch you grow, watch you on SNY shows, having, people that, Laura Albanez was on your show, just really interacting with that Mets nation, as Lindor called it yesterday. So you're killing it, man. And thank God for you, because honestly, that's where I get all my Mets info.
Well, you're a huge part of Mets Nation, and you're behind enemy lines in Philadelphia and the coverage that you have to do down there. But I appreciate you coming on. I can't believe this is the first time, because, really, we have been in touch with each other since 2020. We've been in contact, and it's so great to have you on and to talk to you about this team and what they have accomplished this season. From starting off 0-5, the awful May that they had, and now this team is on their way to the National League Championship Series. They advanced, beating the Philadelphia Phillies. Before we get into that, got to shout out already 37 people in this room. Shout out to all of you. Jeff Cohen, Johnny Boy, my good guy Johnny Boy down in Virginia, Carlos Ortiz, Patty in NYC, Brad, Stanley Babbage in the room. Great to see everyone. Frankie Almeida in here as well. Everyone, thank you for joining. Any comments, questions you have, you know what to do. Throw it in the chat. Let's get into this show and the Mets advancing in Game 4 at home. I mentioned at Citi Field for the first time in the, what is it, the now 19 years that Citi Field has been out here. Now the Mets have finally, because we remember 2015, everything was all on the road, right? They took care of the Dodgers on the road. They took care of the Cubs on the road. And, obviously they lost at home to the Royals, but we like to forget about that. 2022, the same thing with the Padres. We like to forget about that as well.
Right.
But, and you got to be at the first 2 games in Philadelphia. That atmosphere, you could say whatever you want about, the team, obviously arch enemies, but that atmosphere that the Phillies bring and their fan base brings, that's what you want to see. That's what attracts people to baseball and wanting to be fans of baseball. That had to be, even though being a Met fan behind enemy lines, that had to be awesome.
Yeah, and I feel for my brothers and the every fan base. Imagine if the Mets and Yankees had to share a fan base, right? Like, think about all the jerks that would be in that. So when you see Philadelphia, I think of it as I want to find the passionate people, and I'm fortunate enough to work with them on a daily basis. So I do feel for my brothers. That stadium was electric. I took my daughter to game one. It was just her dad and me and my daughter. That's it. No mom. Thank God for that ballpark being so beautiful, having family bathrooms that were clean, people that just cared. So as much as there's craziness going on, it was electric, man, and it was just nuts. And the sound decibel was similar to WrestleMania. That's the only thing I could compare it to.
That's awesome. You look back at the first two games of the series and you think, the Mets really had an opportunity to really sweep the Phillies. The Phillies were totally off their game. Let's talk about the Phillies first here, because we'll save all the good stuff about the Mets, for later on in the show. But, looking at the Phillies, what is the feeling that you're getting? Obviously it's everyone's upset, but like from the team, from people on sports radio, what is the feel right now coming out of Philadelphia? Because to me, I feel like there's still time for this team with a couple little adjustments. They still have some time to make that run.
Yeah, right now Alec Boehm's enemy number one, right?
Really?
Yeah. JT Realmuto also barely hit during and Brendan Marsh. So those three guys are getting trampled on right now. But Alec Boehm is by far enemy number one. And his attitude last night in the clubhouse when they asked if he was at a turning point in his career as a Philly, and he's like, I know exactly where I'll be next year. And he was very, nonchalant about that. But, I was there when he became the superstar that he is by saying he effing hated that place, right?
Yeah,
So,
I remember that.
I was there. Crazy fact. I had a feeling it was going to change. So, for plus 1,800, I bet against the Mets, and so I did cash $1,200 because I know my Mets and I know baseball, and you could just feel it coming. And I looked at my buddy and I was like, look, man, I'm going to throw $10 on this or whatever. And he's like, go for it. He's like, I was like, the best case scenario is I always felt like I lose. So I even made a bet during the NLDS with my daughter that she could put an ONG glitter thing on my bald head if the Mets won. And we're sitting there game one together. And I was like, I'll take that bet. I'll take that bet because I would literally walk through fire to get these Mets to advance. So that's my weird fandom coming out of me. But yeah, I figured me losing and having to have that put on my head tomorrow night at dinner, it was worth it to be where we are right now. So,
it's so crazy how, far Boehm has come since those comments to become a fan favorite. And now, is in the doghouse, as you could say. I have the stats here. The only one I don't have on here is Bryce Harper, but you look at, Schwarber, 2 for 16, Turner, 3 for 15, Boehm, 1 for 13, Realmuto, 0 for 11, Stott, 2 for 11, Marsh, 1 for 12. And then you go to the bullpen, Hoffman, who I think he was an all-star, a 40.50 ERA. Strom, also all-star, 18 ERA. Estevez, their closer, gives up the big game winner. And, I was worried coming into this series facing this lineup. I still thought that the Mets could win this series in 4, but I knew it wasn't going to be easy because this lineup it could be so lethal at sometimes. I don't know what happened towards the end of the season where it kind of just, fell apart for them. Michael, they only had 1 home run this entire series, and it was the first, I think it was the second pitch of the first game from Kodai Senga to Kyle Schwarber. That's insane to think about when you look at that lineup.
Yeah, we were still parking at that time. I got tickets last minute. Phillies did try to keep me out of that ballpark. They wanted to make sure, dude, it was a sea of red. There was probably, I would say less than 100 Met fans there. And I'm not exaggerating. And I was fortunate to be one, but Peyton and I were still in the parking lot and that place erupted, and she looked at me and she's like, we're going in there. I was like, we're going in there and we're going to fix this. So that was crazy. Now, what I will share is game 3. A lot of those especially in the first inning. Kyle Schwarber, I think he hit it like 301.
Yeah.
Or 304 would have been out in the bushes in their stadium, but we're like 308. So there was a ton of warning track power, but the power City Field kept them in. So
I think the wind too worked to our
yeah,
advantage
for
at City
sure.
Field. You know, when you go to City Field, you know what you're getting when it comes to that like wind tunnel out there. Yeah, a couple of those first at bat, Schwarber, I think even Castellanos and Harper, they hit the ball really hard and it just wasn't going anywhere. But as you know, Rosie K says on here on the chat, I think the Phillies are a slug or nothing. I mean, that's what it felt like. They were not coming up with any big hits. The Mets pitchers, I think they had, and especially the starters, a 2.25 ERA in the entire series. I mean, when you look at the Mets rotation and you think about rotations of the past and what they could have been, you think about 2015, you even go to 2022 and 2023 at the beginning of the season when they first brought in Verlander. You look at this group right now and where they're at, and you compare that to the others and at like a beginning of the season, I don't think you think, or none of us would have thought that this group is the group that takes the Mets to the NLCS.
Dude, I totally agree. And to further that, who had Wheeler lasting out of that whole pack, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's absolutely insane what he's done. Granted, when he was with the Mets, he was injured for a lot of our runs with Harvey, Noah, and DeGrom, but he was always mentioned in that package. And I felt some type of way when he left, but he's been a Philly through and through. So the other weird thing, and I think this messed with the Philly, at least the fan base. You can never tell with the players. They'll never tell you because they're so trained. But when we announced Kodai Senga out of nowhere, that starting game one, it was like an ace out of nowhere, right? Like, and handled it perfectly. 10 pitches or 200 pitches. So it kept them off their game. It reminded me of like Terrell Owens, like when the Eagles were in the Super Bowl, nobody knew if he could even catch the ball. Like, so same thing.
He was
like
hurt.
Yeah, exactly. But they're like, oh, he's activated. They're like, what? Like, what is he going to do? So he became a pawn, but this wasn't a pawn. I mean, outside of that Schwarber bomb, outside of that, Senga did his job considering that was the second time he pitched all year, and so it's just, it was remarkable. Everything about that series. Like you said, one home run, living and dying by the home run. I'm a little fearful that's how a lot of our heroics has happened, but we're setting the table up right. Because what I admired about the Brewers was it's like death by 1,000 needles, like typically with them, especially when we played them in the regular season. Like, it's just like these guys can run, they can hit, and their bullpen will smash you apart. Like, the minute they get a lead, the bullpen just shuts it down. So, and the game gets sped up and it's over. So to see them beat us in game two with the long ball, I was very shocked by that. But and I think that was devastating. Game twos have not been good to the Mets throughout this postseason.
All season long in series, they have struggled in game twos of series. So it's nice to see, them come away with this series win. And you go to the Kodai Senga announcement, like everything that has just happened, the Mets have really been in the postseason since that San Diego series.
Yes.
In mid-September. They really have. I mean, it has been playoffs all the way through, and the way they get in with the Lindor homer in the ninth against the Braves, they go to Milwaukee. Pete Alonso does it, and I think to myself, just like you said, how can they just keep this going? Like, at some point, these last second heroics, like at some point it's got to run dry,
right?
And our I guess thought process, it just didn't. Like, it just keeps on going. They just keep on finding ways to win, and they keep finding ways to win late and to come back. And I am just like lost for words of where this team has brought us. It's just been an exciting run.
Yeah, it literally, like, the season was flashing before my eyes when Pete hit that home run in Milwaukee. Like, and we are on a live stream, so I'm talking it out and just reminding everybody where we were at when I was live on Alt 104.5 in London, right? So I'm on the radio station talking about they just rated like the Philly Fanatic the best mascot ever. And I was like, you guys need to check out Mrs. Met and call me back. And so it was pretty funny. But that London series was tongue in cheek, and I looked around, I was like, man, this might be the biggest game we play all year. You had Bryce Harper doing the goal slide and his home run, all that stuff, and then to watch them in September take 4 out of 7 from the Philadelphia Phillies, I think that was a boost of confidence. The Phillies were struggling; they were finding themselves. It wasn't like they were laying down and getting ready for the postseason. That wasn't the case at all, because they were trying to figure it out. And that's why the Alec Boehm thing wasn't a shock when he sat game 2 to the fan base. It was a shock to the rest of the world. They're going to, you don't do that in the postseason. Like, Pete, I hate when people say this, and now I'm going to say it, but Pete didn't have a great year. Hitting 30 home runs is a great year, by the way. But people are saying that because they expect him to be on that Judge Ohtani 40, 50 home run train. But 30 plus home runs in a season is remarkable. Like, that's a feat. And if that's your bad season, let me see a good one out of you. Holy cow. Like, but Alec was struggling down the stretch, and they decided to bench him. And I think that really was advantage Mets, man. That lineup started to get weak, and I laugh because the Mets just keep getting healthier. I have never seen somebody on a postseason run get healthier.
Yeah.
Whether it's Senga, now McNeil, and I'm like, oh, do we want the squirrel back in the mix? Like, does that, of course we do. Like, and I saw him celebrating out on the field. It just feels good. It's just crazy. Diaz can't celebrate. He's scared to celebrate. That was the most of a reaction he ever had on a mound since he had that injury when he struck out Schwarber. So, like, I appreciate him not trying to get injured again. But it's just, dude, it's been a run, man. And it's funny because, like, I told you I don't have SNY, but I remember the Mets moments and all those games that would get played during rain delays and just during the offseason. And they got the whole next year signed up in the last week and a half.
Yeah, we have like 4 or 5 games this week that could just be replayed over and over and over again. You look back at the start of this series with the Phillies. We talked about Senga coming back, making his return. Outside of that home run, he pitched 2 innings, and I thought he did well. And I'm going to bring up a guy that came on after him because Jeff Cohen and Cindy McGrath have been talking about him. Peterson.
Oh my God,
Petey, David Peterson came up huge, just like Jeff Cohen saying. Cindy McGrath saying been a huge Peterson supporter all season long. Loves that K in the 8th, and she's been a supporter all season long. The kids come up huge all season. Look, when we talk about David Peterson and what he did this season, going 10-3, he's a huge reason why the Mets made the postseason. And I look at him coming back from that hip surgery, and he's a totally different pitcher. Now, I don't know if that hip surgery was lingering for a while or what, but when he came back, he was just untouchable for so long. May have had maybe 5 bad starts out of all the starts that he made, and he comes into the postseason. We don't really know what's his role because we're just playing game after game after game. Is he going to start? Is he going to be in the bullpen? Where are we going to need him? He goes into Milwaukee in game 3, gets the save in the 9th, and then he comes to, was it the day later? Did they play on Friday? No, they played Saturday. So they got the day off, comes in Saturday in relief of Kodai Senga, and gives you 3 shutout innings. The Mets bullpen was fantastic that night, kept in there. And when you're going up against Zach Wheeler, who we all know is a top line Cy Young candidate ace, when you come up and are only giving up 1 run against him, or giving that team only 1 run, you know that the Mets offense was excited as heck to just still be in it, to get him out of the game, work him in those, fourth, fifth, and sixth innings to get him out of there. And then the Mets went to work on the bullpen. That was a kind of like a masterclass to me on what this team has been built upon and their resilience all season long. It was great to see them come through with the win there and kind of a steal. And we know that they stole one back in game 2 because Luis Severino was pitching great for most of that game. And then it was all up to, Castellanos and Harper to give them those home runs. Insanity.
Yeah, I did think game 2 was the first time we kind of showed that we have rookie coaching, right? Because although I think his pitch count was like pennies at the time, maybe 70. So like it made sense to have him go back out there, but it's the third time you're facing that heart of the order. So I was looking at my buddy, Matt, and I was like, yo, dude, like this is scary. Like this is the third time they get to look at him. Like I was like, in this baby ballpark, I'm not a fan of this, but then he said, well, I feel like the Mets were so good because Wheeler got DeGrommed. And what I mean by that is Wheeler pitched so nasty. The minute he left the Mets, it looked like T-ball. Like, you know what I mean? It didn't matter what pitcher came in. Thank God he's gone. Now we can earn our checks. It's season. So, and they
all
put
singles too. No extra bases, no power, nothing.
And that's what I was like, yo, this is like a Brewers game. Let's go. Like, like we're doing what we learned in Milwaukee how to play, small ball. There was no home runs from us. Yeah, you're right. Oh, well, yeah, none, right?
We didn't hit a home run in game 1.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. That's a great feeling to put up that many runs on the board and not to hit a home run. He just kept the assembly line going. And, Hoffman's been great for them, but Peterson's been amazing for us, man. It's just absolutely insane. Like, I don't know. And to go into that role, from not a lot of starters can do that. Like we've seen that with veteran, I hate to throw him out there, but Bartolo Colon, who has a rubber arm, game 1 of the World Series, I thought that was advantage us in extra innings having Bartolo. My heart wasn't racing as much. And unfortunately, we all know what happened.
We see McGill too. McGill's having trouble going. Yes. He's always had trouble coming out of the bullpen. But we have gotten signs from David Peterson in the past that he could possibly come out of the bullpen, and he's kind of exceeded those expectations. And he's really given us, and I said this on SNY with Dexter Henry. I said, it was Jason Spiels. I said that David Peterson is going to be the secret weapon of this series. We don't have a lefty. Danny Young is unreliable, and we're going to need someone to get those big outs in Harper and Schwarber. So to have him come in and did what he did this series, backing off of that save at the end of the Milwaukee series, and this is a good point because I had mentioned that I was like, oh man, this is kind of a Madison Bumgarner type like move for him. And I was like, you know what? Maybe that's too much because what Madison Bumgarner did in the World Series was, insanity. Yeah. But then I was starting to think to myself, how can I forget this Met? And Carlos Ortiz and Sidney McGrath agree. Sid Fernandez-esque performance we're getting from him out of the bullpen. Outstanding. Yep.
Yeah, that's so true. That's such a, I got goosebumps even just thinking about that. So that's amazing. And then also like the simple fact that, you saw actual bullpen people. Well, so I want to go back to game 2 real quick. I lost my train of thought. I'm not going to lie. The Nimmo home run, like everybody was like, I felt that was a good moment for our hitting and stuff like that. But we used Diaz, and it reminded me of Chapman with the Cubs, the way we used Diaz in that scenario. I was like, oh, we're just going to run this guy's arm to the ground. Like, you know what I mean? So I felt that wasn't really fair to him, that whole scenario. It's very different. The Phillies did a great job of making it very nonchalant. They did not even announce that he was coming into the game to the crowd. So like you had to actually see his mannerisms or like see the name on the back of his jersey to really know that he was coming in. So it was almost like any reliever was coming in. So there was no excitement behind that. And it just like for that point, it kind of shows like how hard it is to fit into different roles and how
Yeah.
great Peterson's done it.
Yeah, and I look at, you talk about the roles and you talk about Edwin Diaz. I didn't mind him coming in to face Schwarber at that point in time, since he pretty much has owned him.
Mm.
But bringing him in the 7th is something that I would try to stay away from. I know it's the biggest hitters on the team, but at some point, you have to instill some type of confidence in the rest of your bullpen pieces,
Yep.
because you bring them in the 7th, you don't know what happens in the 8th. And what if those guys come back up in the 9th, right?
Mhm.
So, and that's what eventually happened in game 2.
Exactly. That's
So
exactly what
once the
happened.
Mets had tied that game,
Mhm.
and it went to the bottom of the 9th, I kind of didn't have a good feeling about it. This is like the first time I had like a bad feeling about what was going to happen there, because the
Yeah.
Phillies just kept fighting and fighting and fighting back, and they eventually got to Tyler McGill on that whole situation. What were your thoughts on the usage of Edwin Diaz there? Because if it's up to me now, I exclusively have him coming in the 9th. Maybe he comes in for a 4-out save, but that's it. Because you don't want him sitting. He
Yeah.
thrives off of adrenaline and thrives off of, consistency, and you just don't get that going in the 7th.
Yeah, I didn't like it because he was overused in Atlanta. He was overused in Milwaukee, actually, both times, right? So like I was like, dude, he's got like 90 pitches in like 2 days. I remember saying that. And then also like Peterson being used to get the save in the wild card game. All the Philly fans were excited because they didn't know about Senga yet. And so I was just like getting that same vibe. Like we can't use Diaz in Citi Field game 1. Like game 3, because of the fact that we overused him here. So I didn't like that because I was like, we're going to ask for 9 outs. I did not think he was not going to, I thought he was going to go 1 through 9 on that team. So if you're bringing him in, he's staying in until the game is done, which I thought was like risk reward. We're up 2. There's no chance they're coming back. So like, I understood it, but I was like, kind of like, we have to shut this door. The game went to the 7th through the 9th went way too long. There was too many pitches. There was too much productivity on the bases from the Phillies, and you kind of had that weird feeling. I had that same thing in my gut, and it was the same feeling I had in 2000 against the Yankees, where we were this scrappy team, and we had almost no business being there.
Yeah.
But we had leads going into the 9th inning, and somehow Derek Jeter just pokes one to right or whatever. They always found magic in that 9th inning. So I was like, oh, great, here we go. So I don't know. And the arrogance, and this is where the negative fans came out. All the DMs, all the texts, Phillies in 4, Phillies in 4. I didn't say anything back. I just kept walking. They were dancing throughout Xfinity Live, like freaking. It was a big deal that they won that game. For them. But for me, I was like, dude, I felt like whoever's the last person, like I felt like that was a dogfight, and whoever had the last at bat, whoever was the home team, they were gonna win it. Like that's how I felt that entire time from the 7th to the 9th, But
Yeah.
it did stink because I thought Miguel was gonna get out of it. Honestly, he was a couple
We
pitches
got the
away
first
from
2 outs, right?
Yep. Yeah.
I remember correctly.
Yeah, and I think he had 2 strikes on Stott, right?
Yeah.
Casty. But yeah, so he, it became a scenario where I was like, man, I really wish McGill came in the 7th, and we fed our poison and we just didn't try to overthink this. But I get it. Like Schwarber can't, we saw it last night. Thank God he can't hit him. But man, Lindor telling Diaz, just throw strikes. He can't hit you. Just he's like, I got this. Let's go. He's like, no, just do it. And like, talk about the leadership change. I felt like 2 years ago, this was Pete Alonso's team.
Yeah.
Now the voices, and I could be wrong about this, like, because again, I don't get to see all the drama unfold on SNY during the night and stuff unless you post it and I get to watch it. But they have upgraded their app. My wife and daughter think I'm crazy. You can watch like 3 minutes and then you have to watch another ad. So I can watch like little sips of SNY. She's like, you got to stop doing that. It's very annoying. So yeah, download the SNY app for you Met fans that are out of market. You get to see some cool stuff and you get to see my man Anthony on there sometimes. So Yeah, to go back to that real quick, it's a regime change, right? So I feel like Pete has taken a back seat as far as being the vocal person. It's really Lindor's team, with
Yeah.
Nimmo being a little bit of the other side of the voice of the
Yeah,
outfield.
yeah, that's how it's felt. Definitely for most of the season, especially after they held the meeting, and how far they've come since the meeting. I look at what you said about how the Phillies felt and the fans felt after Game 2, and I would have felt more like the way they felt if the Mets totally got crushed after the way
Right.
Sevy pitched, kind of like what happened in Game 1. But after
Mhm.
stealing Game 1 from Wheeler, the Mets never gave up. They kept
Mm-mm.
fighting back. They kept clawing back. And I talked about this, with the whole Milwaukee series. What's going to set the Mets apart from the Brewers? And I thought it was power. We saw none of that for
Yeah.
that series, except for the Pete
Until the
Alonso
end.
home run. Yeah,
Until the end.
until the end. Thanks
Yeah.
for the heroics in the end.
Oh my
Appreciate
God.
it. Game 1, 2 against the Phillies, they did not hit any power. Then you
No.
go to Game 2, and you got Mark Vientos hitting 2 homers. You got Nimmo hitting a home run, Pete hitting his second home run of the postseason.
Uh-huh.
And it just never felt like they were out of it and that they could come back. They could have pulled it off too.
Yeah.
But I think the Phillies were just too strong in Game 2. And I still felt somewhat confident coming into Game 3 that they would be able to, continue this run, and so they did. But what we've seen for Pete Alonso, he had 2 big home runs in this series, one in Game 2, one to start Game 3.
Mhm.
What all he has dealt with this entire season, just to see him now, hit these big home runs, set the tone for this team,
Mhm.
kind of like what Daniel Murphy did.
You took the words right out of my mouth,
Yeah,
man.
kind of like what Daniel Murphy did, to a lesser extent, because Daniel Murphy's run is
Fair. Yeah.
is
Like there was nobody else but Murphy. Like it just
yeah,
felt like
yeah,
when you think 2015, it's just Murph.
yeah. But you're getting contributions from everyone on this team. But to see Pete, after the struggles this season, look, when you look at the stat line, Pete
Mhm.
had a good season, right? Peripheral views, yes.
Mhm.
But man, he struggled with runners in scoring position. He struggled
Mhm.
in big spots, and he is coming up big time when we needed him the most. And I just don't know. Like, I don't know where it goes. I don't want to get into the offseason stuff, but I'm just happy, one, for the Mets that they are getting these big hits now from him. And I'm happy for Pete, man. I'm pretty sure that he's been pressing all season long,
Yeah.
just trying to do what he can. Obviously, he's got in the contract year and everything like that. But to see this from Pete now, and the excitement and seeing him with his brethren, has been just a fun experience.
Yeah, and he's found the outside part of the plate, and he's found the ball out there. Like so he's seeing the ball well. I think the worst thing, like, and I again, I was like, oh no, we don't play again until Sunday. One, like, my heart can't. My heart's like, no, we got to get amped, right? There's nothing to do right now, and so luckily I'm on your show tonight. But yeah, Pete's seeing the ball well. I think he's keeping his emotions in check as much as he can because he is an emotional player. Philly fans love to remind me that he was doing squats during the home run derby and he got really emotional when he
Yeah.
lost. And I was like, dude, he's donating that money. And also, like, he had the first couple years that he won, he wasn't getting paid yet. So $1 million was life changing. By the way, he
Yeah.
still donated a ton of it. So, I mean, he's got a heart of gold. Todd, I don't know if you saw my watch party scream. I got a message from Todd Frazier. He's like, yo, dude, let's go Mets, but you sounded like a girl. So I was like, man, I can't. It's sometimes, as you know, as you grow, more people get to know you and you actually get to talk to these players and you end up becoming friends. So he mocked me a little bit, but his son Blake is a huge Pete Alonso fan. Todd created the nickname Polar Bear. So there's a lot of synergy and he loves that guy. To the point where, like, we both were like, man, that we felt so happy for him. Like, and I hope the Mets do what they didn't do with Daniel Murphy and that we, and I think we will. And that's try to offer him whatever, the market is and maybe a little bit more. So a hometown raise as opposed to a hometown discount.
Yeah. Yeah, Carlos Ortiz saying the postseason will get Pete that big contract that he's looking for. My guy, Matt Ibby Ibanez from Till Mets do his part in the room, saying that the
Oh,
LFGM
Matt.
Pete we spoke about feels to finally be back. Yeah, we talked about this when he came on my podcast about it felt like, and this was towards the middle of the season, it felt like he kind of was like corporate. Like he was
Mhm.
very Scott Borisy type of player, and
Yeah.
not that fun going LFGM, humping the rails. All that stuff seemed to have gone away.
Yeah.
And it
Dancing
finally
on the
feels,
pool table.
yeah, it finally feels like that guy's back.
Peter Pumpkin Eater, like, I called him Big Meat Pete, and
Yeah.
Todd's like, yeah, that's another thing Phrase said. He's like, don't call another man Big Meat. I was like, all right, dude. It was in the moment. It's just, dude, our season, man, that's just something. I felt like a rocket ship. I would have ran through a wall for this guy. Unbelievable. The ball just kept carrying off the bat. Oppo Taco right there. It was just
That's
sick.
huge. The fact that
Mhm,
he's going opposite field is absolutely huge. All of his home runs so
mhm.
far have been to the opposite field.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it all. So
Cindy McGrath saying, I'm adult enough to admit I was wrong to give up on Pete. Him starting to hit Oppo is a great sign. So
look, I've been burned so much that when ownership said we're in a reset, not a rebuild, I was like, I've heard that story before. I wasn't as bad as Max and saying get me off this team kind of attitude. I did like the blue chips that came in, like, so we did reset our assets, because Philly fans and would love to call in and comment saying that the Mets still have, how are they a team, a dynasty? How are they this small group of guys, they can't be underdogs when they have the largest payroll. And I'm like, well, timeout. A lot of that payroll is playing for other teams, or they're blue chip in our farm system right now. So it's just like, and Acuna coming up, man, with Lindor out, like, you couldn't ask for a better story from a rookie, who's obviously very, very talented. I think he was being scouted when he was like 11, but and he's still young. But to see all this happen, like, and it's just, every time you stop and think about it, another memory pops up from this run.
yeah, absolutely. And G Money Stacks says, hey, Anthony, sorry I'm late. I'm glad the New York Mets got a lot of resilience past the baton and confidence. That's what it's been, right, with this team. Pete's doing stuff. Nimmo's doing stuff. Lindor's doing stuff. And, I think about the other guys. Marte and Winker have been coming up with big hits in the postseason. Home runs.
Taylor doesn't strike out. He's guaranteed to take 20 pitches away from the pitcher. Like, it's crazy. Like, they're productive outs, even when they're, he works the count. Like that. Atlanta doesn't happen. Game 1 Atlanta doesn't happen with Taylor's at bat. So it's just the play setters, everything, the whole team. It's a vibe for sure.
It's great not to have to count on, one person to kind of lead this team. Remember, like 2022 is, if it's not Pete and Lindor, like if the team goes as Pete and Lindor go, right? Yeah. That's how it was in 2022. 2015, it was supposed to be Cespedes for the most of the run, and then it became Daniel Murphy, and everyone else was just, an afterthought on that team. This team here, everyone is getting a piece of the pie. Everyone is getting involved. And, I look at this one guy on the offense, and it's crazy because, he wasn't even the top of the 3 prospects of the Mets babies, or the baby Mets, right? It was all about Francisco Alvarez. It was all about Brett Beatty, and Mark Vientos was an absolute afterthought, even coming into this season. Brett Beatty, can't play third. He gets, he just struggles offensively. And then they go to Mark Vientos. And if you remember in the offseason, Mark Vientos had went to Francisco Lindor, asked for help playing defense and playing in the infield. And you saw the videos of them working together. Not to say that Brett Beatty wasn't doing the same thing, but what Mark Vientos has done to solidify himself as a third baseman, and we're like, you know what? if he could just be like Alec Boehm, I think we will be fine. If he could
Yeah.
play third base like Alec Boehm, be adequate. He's better.
He's way better. He's way better. Way better. And to quote Mark Henry Jr., not Mark Henry, the wrestler, although I have had him on our airwaves and I love the man, but Mark Henry Jr., a lot smaller than Mark Henry, the wrestler, he said, JFC, we're going to have to deal with Vientos for the next 10 years. To give you an idea, this is an Alfonso. This is this is a special person. I don't want to put, the great one under him, but having a guy like this in the corner is huge.
Yeah.
It's absolutely huge.
And you saw him, like, I know he made a couple of errors to give up some runs, tough plays to make.
Very tough.
But he's made some big plays as well on defense. And the fact that, and to me, he's kind of still a rookie. He did not get a lot of at-bats in 2023 and in 2022. And he comes into this season, he comes into his home, hits over 25 home runs, close to 80 RBIs. And he comes into the postseason and his veins are ice cold. Like,
dude,
I couldn't believe it. How mature, how nothing, the big lights of the postseason did not affect Mark Vientos whatsoever. Comes away with 2 big home runs, a game-tying home run in Philadelphia in the 9th inning. They lose the game, but that play that was outstanding.
It was unreal. And Robin Ventura comes to mind too, like that kind of third baseman he's been. Like it's a problem, and it's a great problem for us. It's a problem for Philly fans, Atlanta fans, and anybody else who steps in our way. But yeah, that was a huge question mark, man. I watched it on Matt's show. I watched it on your show. It was Beatty Vientos. Is one of them going to actually be there? Because, you need offense from that corner. But also to mention his glove, after Lindor's home run, whether it be the 7th or 8th inning, probably top of the 8th, actually, that hard hit ball right to them deep in the corner, and he got that out. That was a statement out, man. That was huge. Everybody runs fast in the major leagues. Phillies seem to have some speed. Milwaukee had a ton of speed, so it kind of speeds up the game, and accidents and mistakes can happen like that, and it's tough for a young person to go through that for the first time. And like you said, a lot of those plays were tough, but man, Brett Beatty, like, I don't know if he'd be on the team next year. I think we could trade him. Like, I don't think
I don't see it. I honestly don't see it.
Because I don't want like the Ike Davis or Dom Smith type thing, right? Where we're like trying to figure out which one should stay and which one should go.
I think that because of the year that he had and the way he has played at third base, that he deserves the opportunity to start the season as the third baseman. You even look back in time, like when David Wright was playing third base, you remember he'd double pump his fist to throw the ball. Some of them would bounce, some of them would be on target. He's got an arm too. He's got an arm.
Yeah. It's a really good problem to have. Speaking of David Wright, man, with the Lindor back injury, that gave me flashbacks of that. Scared the living daylights out of me. El Troll going down with a back and a hamstring. I was like, stay healthy, guys. But like I said, it's been a really good run. But yeah, Vientos has an arm, and that's something that I had flashbacks when you're talking about Wright. But Howard Johnson didn't have an arm at third base either. He got a sarcastic standing ovation because he just couldn't. He had the yips for like a solid 2.5 to maybe 3 months. So the Shea Stadium crowd gave him the standing O, and it was great. So yeah, man, third base has been a really fun topic around the New York Mets for a long time.
Forever.
Yeah. So it was weird not having that guy. We used to have a bunch of those guys. Like I think Todd Zeal went to first, right? Because we had 2 of them. Like there was people getting moved around the infield because we had
Fonzie moved to second. Ventura was at third. Then he went back to third when we got Alomar. I mean,
it was a great third. Was never a problem, and I like Brett. I really do, and I feel for him. But Vientos is he's taking the bull by the horn. Like the best person gets the job, and the person who puts in work. And you hear that, and you even heard that with Iglesias talking about how when he first off, thank God that man decided to take a minor league contract. he could have just went into the music industry and never looked back.
Mike, I was
yeah.
begging for him to come on the roster.
Mhm.
Forget Zach Short, forget Joey Wendell. You look at this man's stats throughout his entire career, whether he was in the major leagues or whether he was in the minor leagues, and he always hit, and he's got the defense. And I asked for weeks and weeks, please bring up Jose Iglesias. You won't be upset when you bring him up here. And they finally did, and that was another part of the turning point of this team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've said, "Oh my God," but it's really like, but they've given you "Oh my God" moments, so it's not
Absolutely.
even like it's so fitting. There's never, I never thought something in my brain would replace LGM or LFGM, and "Oh my God" is right there because I keep saying it every night. It's just crazy.
It is totally crazy, and we got a OMG moment or moments in Game 3 from what I think is right now the ace of the staff in Sean Manaea. He was absolutely brilliant against this team, and I've had a couple of guys on the show to talk about Manaea, and my good friend CP, who does his show on he's a content creator as well for the Mets. And this is Aaron from Blue Shirts talking about, CP for weeks about Iglesias this season. Yeah, he's been great. But, Sean Manaea changed his arm slot angle, seeing, and I was at this game. Chris Sale was absolutely dealing against us during the middle of the season. And he switched his slot angle to be more sidearm. And it has done wonders for him. I know he had the last couple starts were not to his best, but this was probably his best start of the season. And man, if someone's looking for a contract this offseason, Sean Manaea is going to get one for sure. Absolutely.
Yep.
I don't think that he opts in. I would be shocked. I would love for the Mets to bring him back. I think he is, when you get guys that know how to play in New York, you really have to try to hold on to that.
Yeah.
And Sean Manaea, even Luis Severino,
Oh,
those
man.
two guys have embraced New York so well and have become such a fabric of this organization and of the city that it's hard for me to let them go. So like Stanley Babbage is saying, like I would totally resign Manaea. What were your thoughts from that start from him?
Remarkable, and it felt great because there was a lot of jokes about everybody knows Taijuan Walker's doing really bad right now.
Yeah.
They'd be like, I'd be pitching Game 3 for the Mets. So I was like, dude, I don't think you realize how good we are. So for Sean to go out there and shut that crowd down and just do what he's been doing, man, it feels good because I feel like we always got the pitchers that were question marks, and they like the Chris Bensons of the world, stuff like that, and they just brought either drama or it just didn't work. We
have been known forever.
To
sign reclamation projects and guys at the end of the line that were great back then. But Sean Manaea had shown some changes in San Francisco. And when they brought him in here, I think the thought process was either him or Hyunjin Ryu, who eventually went back overseas. I said, let's bring Sean Manaea in here for two reasons. One, he could pitch in the bullpen. What David Peterson is doing is kind of what I envisioned for Manaea if starting didn't work out and he didn't last too long. Make him be your lefty reliever. So he comes in, and he had an okay start to the season, and then he changes the arm slot and everything changes. And what he did, on Wednesday, actually on Tuesday in that game, I think the biggest thing for me was staying in the game, having to face the heart of the lineup that I think it might have been that third time around. And once he got Castellanos, I think he struck out Harper, and then he got Castellanos into that double play. And the primal yell from him and probably everyone at Citi Field, it was like, that was the moment.
Yeah, it was electric. It's one of those things, a statement game. Obviously, the Phils felt that they were back, right? They're like, Red October just started, like blah, blah, blah. And Sean shut him down. And again, third time in the lineup, like I'm cringing. I'm like, we're going to do this again. We're going to do this again. Like my heart was racing, and he did his thing, man. He deserved every second of the, coming off that mound and feeling that moment.
Yeah, and you talked about it, running through a wall for Pete.
Mhm.
I would run through a wall for Carlos Mendoza.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
Mendy, knowing, and I know he had a hard time in game 2, but
Mhm.
knowing when to keep his starters in, knowing how to push them to the limit, and
Mhm.
certain relievers, the pinch hitting, who to play in the lineup, where to put him in the lineup. I think he's done that so well, and we saw it in this entire series.
Mhm.
Kind of almost, I don't want to say outclassing Rob Thompson, because it's
I
not his fault
Right.
that these guys didn't show up. And to mention too, both of those guys came from the Yankees and have
Yep.
had numerous success.
Yes.
So, shout out to
Yep.
him. Classy guy, Rob Thompson, especially after the first thing he did was give credit to the Mets and how hard they played. So that's I don't like too much about the Phillies, but Rob Thompson, that guy's a class act.
Yeah,
And,
there was a few nice. Casty said something pretty
yeah,
remarkable. Rob Thompson's Philly Rob, dude. They love him here. He's probably the best coach right now. Because
yep,
Sirianni's on the way on the down scale right now. So Philly Rob, they're still gonna ride with him. It's weird, right? Because I laugh about this. If they would have lost in the NLDS, then lost in the NLCS, and then lost in the World Series, the fan base would still be charged up. But they did it the reverse, right? So and the Mets are doing it their way. The one thing that I do really question, because I scoffed at it when the Braves mentioned it during spring training, but they said that layover actually kills them and they're tired of winning the NL East, and they were considering perhaps entering as a wild card. And obviously they had some injuries and stuff, and this was players talking out loud. It wasn't like their mantra. They didn't have it like on the locker room walls and stuff, like win the wild card, everybody. It's hard enough to get in,
yeah,
but I do see this layover. Like, I'm not, where it's advantage Mets this year. I also saw the roadmap that the Mets had opposed to the Braves. Like, I wouldn't want to play San Diego, then LA, and then possibly whoever's left over on the other side, the best Phillies, who knows? So I didn't want to go that route. That sounded horrible. Like, I was like, I'd rather have the Brewers than maybe get the Phillies, and they're cold, like,
yeah.
because they're a very emotional team, and then deal with LA or San Diego or Atlanta. So like, it was like, and the Phillies had that same kind of roadmap in 2022. They played the Brewers, and then they played the Braves, and then they got to LA. So it was just a matter of a different route. But it's the same. It's pretty much the same story. So I do think I saw something the other night. Jimmy Rollins was the first person to come up with this, but I think the Atlanta Mets little doubleheader might fix this whole wild card thing, because I am hearing rumbles that Monday, right after season ends, there'll be a 2-day a doubleheader the first day, and then if the team split, Tuesday they come back for a night game. So and then Wednesday the division series starts. So there's no break in between. So now it is advantage, the division top 3 division champs. So yeah, top 3. 2.
The crazy thing is this whole thing was set up. The way that
Mhm.
they set up the playoffs was for the advantage of the division teams. And
No,
now it's not. The
right.
only thing I think that could make this, an advantage for them is the fact that they go to a hockey style format or basketball style format where everyone plays. You add, I guess, 2 more teams, make it 8 teams, and then do it that way. It's going to be longer. Maybe they shorten the season a little bit to make it not be that many games, but that's the only way to me that it'll work. You're going to get the 8 seed playing the 1 seed, and if they get upset, they get upset. I mean, baseball's
Yeah.
just different, played differently. It's not
Yeah.
easy.
No, I agree. I do, like I said, we're gonna sit out for three days here, right?
I think
So
it's
like,
worth it though.
I do
They're
because
exhausted.
they I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
So and I know we're exhausted. So we do
We're
need a little.
2 weeks on the road,
Yep.
come back,
Hmm.
and then they have it's been nonstop playing. The bullpen needs rest. I think that this for them is perfect.
Yeah, I was heartbroken in Milwaukee, like in that 9th inning, just realizing Pete Alonso will never step foot possibly on Citi Field grass again.
Yeah.
Right, as a Met, like obviously probably will come back in another uniform. So like for that home run, it was just magical, dude. It's just been great. And now knowing like no matter what, we got a couple more games in our own ballpark, it's pretty sick, man. This has been quite a run, and this team. That's all I could say.
Yeah. Well, at the very least, we have 3 games left at home.
Mhm.
We have, or at least 2 games left at home, depending
Right.
on how the series goes. 4 games in total that are definite.
Mhm.
And that's all thanks to what happened in game 4. And we talked about Minaya and how well he pitched. The star of this staff from September on, he's only given up 3 earned runs all of September.
Mhm.
2 kind of must-win games. I consider game 4 must-win.
Mhm.
And Jose Quintana came in there and was outstanding. Like, I have this stat from Sarah Langs that I'm going to pull up for you. And I took a screenshot of it. And it said, Jose Quintana now has gone 5+ innings pitched with no earned runs in 3 straight postseason starts. That's one going back to, I think it was in 2022 when he was in St. Louis and they lost to
Mhm.
the Phillies
Right.
in the wild card. He's the only pitcher with, the only pitcher with a longer streak since earned run officials in both leagues, which is 1913, was Whitey Ford, who did it 4 straight times in the 1960-61 seasons.
Yeah, it's crazy, man, and like what I can tell you is like the Philly fan base, the callers, everybody it's surrounded in the sports world of Philadelphia, which is everybody. They were like, what is this, like 2011? Like, this guy he's washed, like. And so I was like, you don't know what Q's been doing all season, man. You have no idea what you're about to get into. So it's just been the starting rotation. It's funny, like addition by subtraction, man. Like, it's like, we had these uh marquee name pitchers. Like, 2022 was, you can't get past DeGrom, Scherzer. Like, good luck. You're already down 2 before you even see anybody else. Like, and then we do it with Kate Upton's. I always call him Verlander and, Max, and it imploded, right? So, like, it just didn't work. And, smart management, smart trades, send them elsewhere. And it just, they go back and duel it out in Texas, Houston, and the Rangers. So it just, for me, it's been a crazy story. But yeah, the starting pitching is, dare I say, the best we've had,
Yeah.
1 through 5 ever.
Yeah.
And I'd say 1 through 6 too, because so many people have stepped up as that 6 man when somebody went down or we need an extra pitcher. So it's just been nuts to have McGill like just coming in whenever we feel like it is pretty cool, and
Yeah.
Kodai Senga not being here all year, and we didn't miss a beat when it came to starting pitching.
Ibby says, Scherzer and Verlander, nah, give me Minaya, Severino, McGill, Peterson, and Quintana. And he's absolutely right. Absolutely right.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's crazy
I
because in the middle of the season, I really wanted to kind of let Jose Quintana go. I mean, the struggles were really bad. I mean, he wasn't getting through 5 innings. And then as we got closer to the trade deadline, I'm like, is it worth trading him for a body that's just going to be in the minor leagues forever and may come up and get a cup of tea with the team? Or if we're going to make this run for the playoffs, having a guy of his veteran presence, whether he was doing good during the season or not, everything changes in the postseason. Everything goes back to 0 in the postseason, and everything is new again. But, having him come back, and Carlos Ortiz saying he's also as well wanted to get rid of Quintana, but keeping him for this run and seeing what he did in September, knowing his history in the postseason as well. I mean, I had to eat crow. I had to eat crow on that. I mean, he was great.
Oh, look, man. Yeah, I got to eat crow from June to April. Like, I hated the fact that, look, if we were a champion, if we won right now, if the Mets wanted to start a dance party, I'd be dancing with them. But when we started that in April, I was like, yo, man, we need bodies. We need W's on the board. And then we go 0-5. I was like, it's because we have a dance crew. Like, we have a dance crew now. Like, what are we doing? I was losing my mind. Like, I really was, because I had postpartum from previous ownership. I didn't know but I want to share a story with your fans and your listeners. J-Mac Custom has been my ride or die. He's been on our side for a long time. You could see when we built this studio here, he gifted us some signs when he started really getting into that craft. Like he left his 9 to 5 and he really honed in on these signs. And we got a Met one, we got a Yankee one because my co-host is a Yankee fan. And he made the OMG sign. He did some great stuff for charities with me. We've been working together for a long time. And he finally got to meet the Cohens. And the first conversation he ever had with Steve Cohen, he's like, "Are you ready?" And he's like, "For what?" He's like, "If they go along, are you ready? If we could go deep into this." So they knew before we knew.
Yeah.
And it was and so I put that down on in a note and I sent it to J-Mac and I was like, "Yo, dude, remember that conversation because that's a part of this story because I witnessed it in Philly. We have the Philly captain. I don't know if you're familiar with him at all. He's a lunatic, but he was the one that convinced the Philly fan base to give a standing ovation to Trey Turner when it was like forever.
Right.
And it turned around the whole season. Well, on the 18th, it kind of sucks now because nobody's going to watch it. But Netflix is releasing a movie called The Turnaround, the Trey Turner story. And it's his story, the Philly captain, about how he called into all these stations, went on his YouTube page, did a rally cry. And we kind of did that for Lindor too. So we kind of, we stole that. But I think it's great, man. I think the fan bases can change a season.
Yeah.
And we've done that with the OMG movement, with the silliness of Grimace, the playoff pumpkin. You go on and on and on. I mean,
Seymour
it's just,
Wiener.
oh, dude, that was the best. And then we roll them out. The only thing that woman, the Hawk Tua lady, I
she's
think
a
we
part
went
of
like,
it now too.
yeah, but we went like 0 for 6, like right after she threw out the first pitch. There's also another amazing fact. So the sign broke. I don't know if anybody knows that. The O came off the original sign and we went on like a skid. And I'm at Hershey Park and J-Mac calls me. He's like, "Yo, where are you at?" He's like, "I'm trying to figure out how to get this sign repaired. I'm going to go down there." And I was like, "Oh, I'm with my kid. Like, I can't." And this psycho dude went out there, fixed the sign, and they went back to winning. It was like somebody fixed it. Like, so there is magic. There's always been magic. We're the Miracle Mets, stuff like that. So it's really cool to see. And,
it's so great too, seeing Jay, on the field with them yesterday. And he's been a big part of this team and this run as well. You talk about the fan base. Jay's been a big part of it and what he's done with the signs and everything, man. And I see him sometimes out there. I've been trying to get him on the show, but every time I want to get him on the show, he's at the game. And I'm like, maybe I'll get him when he's away. And then he's with the team away. And it's like, maybe I'll wait till the off season.
Well, I'll share a couple stories real quick. I know for a fact that people were not getting me tickets that would have gotten me tickets to any game. And I go to games that I don't even want to go to because they were afraid I was going to bring J-Mac. I knew that for a fact. He's been holding that sign up so much that his freaking back is hurting. Like, he's literally holding us up on his back. Like it's crazy, but yeah, it's been a run. He did that entire away series back to Atlanta to Milwaukee, from Atlanta to Milwaukee again, and then it was Philly time. And I remember asking one of my connections at the Phillies. I was like, "I need 4 tickets," and they're like, "Sorry, buddy, we're out." And I was like, "I don't think you are." And then I backdoored my way into 2 tickets for me and my daughter. But J-Mac has been amazing, and also like that Philly crowd's crazy, dude. They would have spiked our sign or tried to do something. So if you're gonna sit out 2 games, I think he picked the right 2.
Yeah. I know a lot of people even go to Philly, whatever sport it is, and they, unless you're going with a big contingent, like some people don't even wear
my colors. Yeah. It's not
you
worth
always
it, dude. Yeah, it gets crazy. And then there was that's the one thing Philly radio was talking about all week. They're like, "Oh, we were in City Field. I wasn't threatened for my life."
Of
It's like,
course
yeah,
not.
because we're normal people. We got Grimace. We got kids. Like, we got a dance crew. Like, you thought we were gonna beat you up? Like, we
Yeah,
don't.
we
Like,
were at
yeah.
my last game of the season was the last Saturday game at home. I think that was Mania was also pitching that game. The Mets won, but we had two friends, a couple of friends from Philly that are Philly fans come, and it was like even the other Philly fans around, it was the most calm atmosphere. There was no fighting, nothing crazy happened. And, you just always worry when you go to Philly if you're going to get into those confrontations that you don't like, unless you're with a group, it's hard
Yeah.
to wear your stuff.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. The people I sat next to, like I said, amazing people. Some Peyton did say like go Pete, and she got some side eye. She was wearing blue. She refused. She refused not to wear it. I was like, all right, but she was clinched to my pocket the entire time walking. She's like, I feel like we're gonna get trampled on. So the concourse is crazy there. There's so much activity there, and then the further you go up to that 300 level, it's chaos. It's chaos. I love it. I think they're very passionate. They're great. It's not like the old fan base. It's really a true diehard Red October. They don't, not when they like, it's not like they start losing and they chant the Eagles. Like it wasn't like that. It used to be like that in the 2000s for sure. But this younger group is still as rowdy as the old ones, but they know their ball for sure.
You talked about J-Mac, carrying this team on his back with the OMG sign.
Mhm.
I know someone someone who's carried this team on his back since the end of April. I mean, he was batting 089, and to see how far Francisco Lindor has come, and basically really, carrying this team physically, mentally, literally on his back. To the point where he actually did hurt his back. So, we lost him for a couple of games and they still picked it up. But you look at that, game tying home run in Toronto off of the no hitter. You look at the Atlanta game winner, and then you come to game 4, and the spot you always want him in, you get to see him in, and he delivers with that game winning grand slam in the 6th inning. I mean, City Field came unglued. I mean, I jumped out. I screamed. My wife was screaming. We all were just going nuts watching Francisco Lindor come up clutch yet again in what is to me a MVP performance for real.
Yeah, that swing is locked in my memory bank forever. It was one of the sexiest home runs I've ever seen. Like he let the ball come into the zone. Mind you, it's a 99-mile-an-hour pitch. Like it wasn't like he hit a donut. Like, it was but that swing, dude, Griffey-esque, Darryl Strawberry. It was just such a clutch in the moment thing. It's not his first grand slam in the postseason, but he acted completely different rounding those bases. So now you can see Lindor, the leader, and this is like, hey, if I expect this from my teammates, I got to act like, yeah, of course I did this, so it's really, it's a shift in direction and leadership in that clubhouse. And it's remarkable to see. But yeah, man, that Atlanta game, like that was unreal. Like nothing felt real since then. Like all this, like, wait, this isn't supposed to happen for me. Like this never happens. Like matter of fact, we signed Lindor. The 7 Line had this amazing Mr. Smiles shirt, and I had Darren on my pod, and he gave me a sneak peek of the shirt. So I was like, dude, I'm ordering that the minute it goes live. And he's like, all right, cool. Like enjoy it. Every time I wore it, Lindor went like 0 for 4. The Mets lost. Like every time I wore it. That day I decided to wear it. And now it's magical again. So I'm happy I get to wear my Mr. Smile t-shirt because
I got
man,
that one too. I got that shirt.
It's such a great shirt.
Yeah. Ibby saying, I have this art that actually Ibby gave to me. I don't know if you can see it right there, but the Francisco Lindor, nice piece of artwork right here of Francisco Lindor, and he's trying to get the person who did that, or the person who did that is going to do one for him of the Grand Slam. So look out for that when that comes out. You definitely got to share that, Ibby.
Yeah, heck yeah, I want that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Look, you mentioned Lindor has been that leader. He has been that captain, and he doesn't even have to have the C on his jersey or have to be official to know. And I think everyone, whether it's his teammates, Carlos Mendoza, you see it from all of the Major League Baseball, like this is the leader, this is the captain of the team, and he's been showing it. Hitting that, like you said, hitting that grand slam, even when he hit that home run in Atlanta too. I mean, it was just nonchalant, put his head down, ran around the bases, and
does a little smack. That's about it. But
he did a little one, just a little,
but I mean, he has to. That's their home.
yeah,
That's their cry. But
just a little tap.
he does it a little. It's like a little tap.
just a little tap.
Just a little
But
bit.
yeah, look, Lindor, there's been so many instances where Lindor has energized this team after a big at bat, big defensive play. He goes to the mound, he talks to the pitchers, he's talking to them in the dugout, and he set up those meetings. And you know, you're going to look back on this season as really I guess the true coming out party for Lindor, because, and unfairly so, he has been criticized, whether it was last season, 2022, the way that ended, even 2021 when he came here. But they have really taken to him, and this feels so different. This group, it doesn't feel like a bunch of individuals like it did last year and, you know, part of 2022. I feel like these guys genuinely care for each other. And Mendy mentioned it during the press, not during the press conference, during the celebration yesterday, before they pop champagne. You know, he goes, we got to thank, obviously we thank the owners, everyone that's a part of the traveling crew and behind the scenes. We thank our families and our wives. We got to thank the Mets fan base, which we're now Mets Nation. And like, you know, he points out to Lindor and the fact that Lindor started the whole Mets Nation thing. And man, it's just like a brotherhood between them. It's fantastic.
It's unreal. It's unreal. It's, oh my God, nonstop, like in my head. It's just, it's remarkable. He's a Winker, spiking the helmet. Like so many Philly fans were so mad at that. But it was like a Ricky Bobby moment where he's like, my new name's Magic Man. Now you see me, now you don't. And he's like, that's lame. He's like, I think it's awesome. He's like, yeah, it's pretty awesome. So that was the exact interaction I had with Philly fans. They're like, what a dirtbag. He spiked his helmet. Like, it's a wild card game. Act like you've been there before. I was like, dude, that was pretty cool. Like, and I also sent the Reese Hoskin bat slam, like that everybody like had everywhere, and they still love Reese. Like, and that was the other thing. Like, we had to get past Philly to like Milwaukee, Philly, right? Because they always love Utley on the Dodgers. They loved him. Now Reese is over there. They love him. Like, it's weird. We had that issue with Reese in the beginning, where he called us crybabies and stuff. And, you know, it's just, it's Philly. So I like to share that side of it, because you guys don't, I live it every day. You only have to hear it when you're there.
Well, when it comes to Winker, like, everyone in this chat knows I wanted him at the trade deadline because, for one thing, I wanted to have his pesky self away from us. Like, I didn't want him doing any more damage to us than he has already done. Yeah. But I wanted that this team needed a guy like that, needed that, you know, pesky, fiery, get under your skin type player, to at least have one of them. And he is that guy.
Yeah. The smartest thing he ever did was, he got hit by the pitch. He steals second. Regardless if he thought he got kicked or not, or if it didn't affect him, Marte's heart was racing. And we needed to calm down, right? So in order to win that game, we needed to calm down, get Winker across the plate, and Marte hits the base hit, and Winker slams that. So his gamesmanship there was unbelievable. Like, that was smart. Like, because now Marte's relaxed, he's set, and he's able to actually perform. But, you know, prior to that, you know, the whole place was in shambles. So I felt that extra run, you know, was very, very important to set up the ninth, to set up like, okay, who can we trust with the ball? And if, you know, and when it became Peterson, like, obviously we then knew that we're okay. But if we're not, we still have a few other safety nets in place. So, Wink was amazing in that scenario. I can't tell you how many people DM me, called me, was like, "You're not getting past Milwaukee," and then, "Oh, well, wait till you face a real team." Like, all right, we're still waiting. So it's a good feeling, man. And knowing that the Phillies have been around for a long time, they have the most losses in the history of baseball, and they only have 2 World Series rings, and we have 2 World Series rings. And now knowing the first ever postseason, we could say that belongs to us, which is crazy to think that this is the first time we've ever faced each other in almost 60 something years. Like, it's crazy. And I get it. And there wasn't that many playoffs back in the day. You won it or you didn't, So, but yeah, man, this is a ride that, I'll never forget. The only caveat is I'm highly allergic to dogs. I have a single dog. I've only child. She wants a dog. Hyperallergenic dogs, I still like get red and stuff. So I'm like, if we're getting a dog, I don't want like one of these ugly dogs. I want a nice dog. No offense to anybody with a hypergenic dog or whatever. So if the Mets do win the World Series, she's getting a dog. Yeah, she's getting a dog, man. You have a pup. You have a pup, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I do. I have a little Yorkie.
Nice.
Cheech, and he's 17 years old right now. He's hanging in there.
God
and we always watch the games together. I posted a couple of pictures of us in the past watching the games together. But look, like you said about Winker, about Marte, we'll look back on this postseason and we'll think of all these big moments, from the grand slam, the 3-run home run, all those big moments.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll always remember as well those catalyst moments from Marte, from Winker. I mean, these guys have been and it just comes full circle because we talked about it all show about the resilience of this team and how they have come together, and every single person on this team has been a part of it. Ibby saying players like Winker and Taylor are glue guys. They play huge roles on championship caliber teams. Pays off having a smart mind running ops finally, as in David Stearns. Cindy saying it's been years since we had a Winker type player on our team. So that is that's big. I want to close out this show the only way we can, and that's talking about the closer, Edwin Diaz, because he gave us he had to get it's not a Mets game, right?
Yeah,
unless the closer comes in and scares you just a little bit.
Yeah,
and
shout out to
Edwin
Johnny
Diaz
Franco.
Yeah, John Franco. The list goes on. What, Benitez, Familia, Wagner. The list goes on and on.
Yeah.
But he got the job done, which is the most important thing. And like we talked about, he gets a big 3-day rest now. What does he throw? He threw over 100 pitches in like a week.
And maybe even like 3 days at one point. It was nuts. And he's got the confidence to go with it. I get it. He always had Kyle's number, but in the 9th inning with the tying run at the plate to strike out Kyle Schwarber, they treat him like Ryan Howard out there. His beer league softball type home run hitter, to strike him out, in that
101.
Yeah, in that moment, like, he's got to have all the confidence in the world, and he deserves it. It sucked without him last year. I think that was the hardest pill to swallow.
Yeah, definitely
to start this season, knowing he wasn't there. Shout outs to the Cohens, getting him like a nutrition, keeping him exercising. Like, that's class. That is stuff that you're thinking about the person more than the money you spent. Because could Edwin just signed a nice contract? Could he have afforded to do that for himself? No questions asked. Stevie sets it up. It's just really cool. And I'm glad we share that, because in the past we always shared the negative stuff in our press. And I've seen a change in everything. And I think it's because of you, Ibby, everybody else that's in this Mets nation, but more importantly, on these microphones and these YouTube things. Wardy's really great with just keeping everybody positive. You guys are all great. Vintage Mets, J-Mac Customs. The content is crazy. And, even Darren, he's opened up his, he had to protect himself for a few years. People wanted to use his IPs, and, he had to keep that relationship with MLB and the official license things. But I've seen him introducing a lot of artists, including J-Mac and others, to his tailgates and thinking about making crossover jerseys with them. Like Mets, this community is unbelievable.
I got a shout out as well. Athlete Logos. He's been a big
Yeah,
part of
yep, of
the
course,
community. I got a lot of his stuff, and
yeah.
he has been a positivo, if you like to say, to this Mets group. You look, Steve Cohen. You mentioned it with Edwin Diaz. As soon as Edwin got hurt, flew him out. The nutritionist, getting him healthy, doing whatever he can to make sure that he came back, in tip-top shape. Obviously, it took a while, being gone for a year. How were they going to use him throughout the season? There was, him issues with his control. He didn't feel comfortable coming back. And I think Mendy did his best to get him on a schedule that was right for him. Now, he may be a little burnt because of having to pitch, but that's what happens when you have to try to get into the playoffs within a day. Like you have
no
to
choice.
use him. You had
Everything,
no choice.
everything was a must win.
Everything was a must win.
Arizona didn't die easily. They tied us, I know how that feels because we did that with Atlanta in 2022. They technically won the NL East, but it was a tie. It was a virtual tie. So and this time the tie was advantage us because we ended up being the lower seed and we got to go through Milwaukee and Philly as opposed to the buzzsaw that is, that Padres. Dude, that Padres stadium looks insane too. You want to talk? I think it's close to the Phillies. I think, and there's a lot of motion right now. Machado's throwing balls like his former manager. It's crazy out there right now. Somebody might die, but
well, we're facing one of those two teams.
Yeah,
so we Winker, have to be careful for sure.
Yeah, Winker, why don't you just chill out for the first game? Let us get a sense of this. Don't go yelling at somebody after you get the third base this time because it could get crazy. No, I'm just teasing, dude. This has been an amazing ride, and I'm so happy to have it and watching all my friends grow and watching this Mets fan base just really control the narrative, and that's what you've been doing, man. Like I said, I watch everybody's shows just so because I don't have SNY, so I appreciate everything you're doing. To keep it up, man, and I hope we talk again before this is over, and I hope we still have smiles on our faces. This fan base freaking deserves it. I'll tell you that.
They do. It's been a long time. And Ibby says it great here. It's about cultivating a community of people that truly love this team and can speak openly and honestly about them. You don't need to be doom and gloom. Just be a normal person. And I think we're getting that. There's a ton of content creators out there, from Ibby. You mentioned Wardy. There's so many of them. All the ones that you mentioned, the ones that I mentioned as well. Ourselves. I mean, we got to throw ourselves in there as well. We all trying to, and we work together. A lot of us are on each other's shows and do our best to be a part of it together. One last shout out to, before we wrap up here, Steve Cohen. And this is for, him, the fact that these guys were gone for 2 weeks and having them have their families out there with them. You saw the wives doing the travel with them. You wouldn't see that in past iterations from the Wilpon era. As we know, we've heard in the past that, Wheeler had to buy a ticket if he wanted to be at the World Series.
Right.
This is totally different. This is a different run organization. And it finally feels like we have the proper hierarchy all the way from the top when you go to the Cohens, to David Stearns, to Carlos Mendoza. You could talk about the players in Lindor and Nimmo as the leaders of this team. I finally feel at ease with where this team is going. No matter how this ends this season, I feel like we are in the right position to move forward and be a consistent winner.
Heck yeah, man. Well said, bro. It's so true. I'm smiling because Lindor said he wants to win it all. So in 10 years, he could come back and eat for free. I was like, it really shows the fact that Darryl Strawberry's number got retired this year, Doc Gooden. I feel like all those ghosts and things that were looming around, giving their numbers out to players that didn't belong, wearing them, and all that's fixed now. And it's just been amazing. And the Cohens are the reason. Alex Cohen too. She's the one that she'll follow any Met fan. She'll respond to any Met fan. It's really, really, remarkable stuff. They really bought into this culture, and it's because they're fans and they're leaders, and the fish stinks from the head. Our fish smells great, So, and I will say that to the Philly fan base, their ownership really cares too, and I think that's why their fan base has changed from that whole Eagles, like just take our Eagle stuff off and put a red shirt on for the day. So it has cultivated over there, but man, it's great to be a New York Metropolitan right now. It's so good.
It's absolutely great. I think that the Mets start on Sunday, the NLCS. We don't know who they're playing yet. That'll come soon. Once we find out who they're playing, I will do a preview show with you guys. So stay tuned for that. We got 93 people in here. Thank you so much for being a part of this show. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you're subscribing to the show. G Money Stacks has kind of the schedule put out there. Sunday will be 8:15 on Fox. Wednesday, 8:08 p.m. on FS1. For those that don't have FS1, you can listen on the Mets radio as well. I think that the second game of the series might be on
4:08.
4:08 schedule. I thought I had taken a picture of that, but I guess I did not. But yeah, they're going to have a game 1 Sunday, game 2 Monday at 4, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday comes home to Citi Field. And I'm very excited for it. I hope you are. Mike, this has been a fun show for me. A long time coming. I'll say that for sure. And there'll be plenty more having you on here. Let everyone know what you're working on, what you got coming up as we wrap up the show.
Yeah, so I'm the co-host of The Divide Live on Fox Sports Radio. We're doing a lot of crazy stuff with iHeart in general and their podcast sports. I produce a lot of watch parties. Co-owner of the Give Us a Shot Network. We have an amazing team over there. Shout outs to Germ, who's setting up all these watch parties from North Carolina. He is not a positive Met fan. He's the one that goes for the clicks and stuff. So my opinions are not his, but I love him. He's a firefighter. He's out there saving people in the storms, fires, you name it. So this is the way he, comes home and decompresses, but he is amazing and he's keeping us going throughout this watch party season. So yeah, we watch out for that. You can follow us at The Divide Live or Fox PHL Gambler on all socials. And
you can follow yourself at Powers Parlays.
Oh yeah. I always
forget that. You got to promote yourself a little bit too.
Yeah, I do host a show called Powers Parlays. It's mostly in the off season. It's on Tuesday nights. When I'm not doing these watch parties and stuff. So I've been a little bit behind on that, but that will definitely pick up once October baseball's over.
Well, everybody, thanks so much for joining the show. Appreciate you. You can follow me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. Follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86 and subscribe on YouTube if you're watching, and if you want to listen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That wraps up the Subway to Shea podcast for today. Continue to enjoy, continue to celebrate the Mets going to the NLCS. Like I said, once we find out which team it is, whether we're going to LA or San Diego, I will do a live stream as we preview that series. But until then, let's go Mets, and you gotta believe.